They used to call me the billionaire. Nobody wanted. And I wish that was a joke I made up for the punchline. But it was the quiet label that followed me into rooms with white tablecloths and name cards, into meetings where men laughed a hair too loud at my jokes, into elevators where strangers stared at my reflection before they looked at me, you know what I mean. Money doesn't save you from that kind of thing. It just turns whispers into surround sound. So I carried humor like a shield, walked in with a smile. A size too big for my face, pretended the extra glance at the chair wasn't about whether it would hold me, and kept moving. My name's Oliver Grant. I run hotels, and freight started with a storage unit and a pickup that coughed more than it drove. And if I'm being honest, the night everything shifted didn't look like a movie at all. It looked like a 24-hour grocery on Bayshore, in Rainier Bay, aisle 7. Top shelf, last box of maple cereal, my fingers on the cardboard at the same time as hers. She had neat nails, steady hand, that quiet kind of presence that doesn't beg for a room. It settles a room. And we both paused, like someone pressed mute. "You take it," I said, playing polite. "You got here first," she said, laughing, like the lights just got a little warmer. I did the dumbest thing, which is also sometimes the truest thing. I set the box back on the shelf between two mascots with fake smiles and held my hands up. "There it is, nobody wins, justice is spoken." And she cracked up, not a polite chuckle. A real from the lungs laugh that made me feel like maybe the world had more oxygen than I remembered. We walked the aisles, talking produce like judges on a cooking show. She teased me for consulting a panel about oranges. I claimed certification. In breakfast disputes and at checkout, we split the kind of split that's supposed to be the end, until I heard myself ask if she came here often, and she said, "Mondays and Thursdays nights are peaceful," and I nodded like I hadn't just memorized her schedule. I showed up Monday, played it cool, with 3 kinds of milk. No luck, showed up. Thursday, saw a red scarf near the apples, and there she was, Sienna Brooks, steady again. "You again," she said, and I lifted an orange like a trophy, me again, and we did the aisles, swapped numbers, texted that night about losing half my jokes on aisle 9, lost and found, closes at midnight, she shot back, and yeah, I laughed at my own phone like a teenager. The weeks that followed felt like finding a door I forgot was there. Evening walks to the pier, where the water always looks like it's thinking about raining late, calls that start with a story and end with childhood cheap matinees where you share a spoon and the soundtrack is 2 people trying to say the thing they're afraid to say. We kept dinners quiet at first, not because we were sneaking, but because the louder the room, the easier it is for strangers to vote with their eyes. And if you've never been looked at like a headline, good, keep it that way. First time she reached for my hand in public, I checked behind me like she meant someone else. She squeezed and laughed. "Stop, you hide like the world gets a vote." And I said the world always votes. And she said, "Let them, I'm happy, that's the point." I wanted that to immunize me, but whispers travel fast, screenshots of comments, photos from a charity thing. I couldn't duck. People saying she's too stunning, must be nice to fall in love with a jet. And the one that stuck came from a woman with perfect lighting who murmured over her champagne. Some women are philanthropists, some are collectors, meaning wallets, meaning me, and I stood there swallowing humiliation that somehow feels brand new every time it shows up. Sienna found me outside by a planter, read my face like sheet music. "Talk," she said, and I told her the whole thing, and she said, "People like that are stuck in a mirror, we don't live there." Kissed my cheek, pulled me back inside, and for a second, it really was that simple. The toughest part wasn't strangers. It was her mother, Monica, a woman of perfect hair and perfect judgment, who invited me to a cafe that smelled like journal entries and pastries, did gracious small talk like she was taxiing a plane. Then said, "Oliver, You seem kind. I don't doubt your success, but my daughter is a Brooks people, watch us. She needs someone who fits, and I asked Fitz what? And she said the picture, then asked if I wasn't concerned about embarrassing her. Didn't say body, didn't have to. I swallowed the heat in my throat because rage doesn't build a bridge worth walking. I think she laughs with me, I said. I think that's the least embarrassing thing two people can do. And she gave me a tight smile and said her husband would talk to me. Elliot showed up in a brown jacket, with hands like he fixes things. Himself sat in my office and said nothing for a whole coffee, so I filled the silence with the truth. I know what they say about me, I've heard it every decade. I also know what your daughter gives me, not money, not status, peace. I make her laugh. She lets me breathe. I don't want a cent. I want to be the guy she calls at 12:03. Because the neighbor's wind chime sounds like an ice cream truck died, and he looked at me a long time and said, I know what I came to say. I can't say it be good to her, that's enough for me. A rooftop later steak. We didn't finish city cranes and fairy lights. Sienna tapped her glass and said, Can I tell you something, without you fixing it? And I said always, and she told me men saw her father's money first. Faces changing when they heard Brooks' laughter turning into a door people walked through with dirty shoes, and I took her hand and said, I don't want your future. I want your laugh. That's the thing I can't buy. And she looked at me like I'd found the only true line on the menu. Then don't buy it, earn it. From there, we started living like the audition was over, farmer's market, peaches down our wrists, Sunday movies with 20 people in the theater, day trips to small towns, where nobody cared if we were anybody. And yeah, stumbles too. A board member tried a joke about heavy lifting and stared at the ceiling like it might collapse. I stared back until he turned red, then let him off the hook, because humiliation has a half-life I don't wish on anybody. And slowly, I stopped choosing corner tables. Let the camera flash, stood taller. Here's the twist, the one you'll argue about in the comments. When we started talking marriage, Monica said we needed a prenup. Non-negotiable protection isn't an insult. It's adult, and Elliot called it wise. And listen, I love a good contract. I built my life on clean documents. So my lawyer drew one up that said, all the grown-up things, support limits, property lines, the house with the blue door. If love turned into static and the night. We sat at my kitchen island, reading it like a cookbook, Sienna said, steady as a heartbeat. If it helps you sleep, I'll sign, and I said, I don't want your sleep, I want your trust. And I looked at the place where my name should go, felt truth, tried to climb out of my throat, slid the pen toward her, and then pulled the paper back and said, new idea, and tore the top page clean down the middle. Yeah, that happened. It sounded reckless. It felt like oxygen. And if you're waiting for the applause, it didn't come. My finance team stared like I threw a suitcase of cash into the tide. Her mother called it foolishness, dressed up as romance. Elliot hugged us and said, then be all in for real, and we were. The wedding wasn't a magazine spread. It was a restored train depot with high windows and brick that remembered stories, 100 of the right people, not 500 of the impressed. Sienna walked down the aisle in a simple dress that made the air jealous. I cried without hiding it. We said vows that shook, and I promised to show up to cook and fail and try again. To tell you the joke even when it dies, to be your quiet, when the world is a megaphone. And later Elliot toasted us. I came to this man with worry, I left with respect. He makes my daughter laugh, that is the wealth I trust. And Monica didn't speak into a mic, but I saw her tuck a curl behind Sienna's ear. When the band took a break, the small kindness that makes you believe people can change by degrees. Life after didn't turn into a montage of yachts. It looked like cabinets that won't close, right her shoes at every doorway, like breadcrumbs, me starting projects at 9 p.m. that make no sense until midnight. Oversalted pasta that she rescues with a smile travel because we can. And staying home because a couch with the right person is a miracle. Closing the door on a nasty article with a terrible Zoom, and watching a dumb sitcom until the laughter in our kitchen drowns out the noise from people who live for it. Do people keep being people? Absolutely. The influencer still posts vague shots about women who strategize their way to security. The board member learned how to apologize without making it my job to comfort him. Monica still flinches at bad photos sometimes. But here's the part that matters. I stopped letting strangers narrate my life from the cheap seats. Sienna didn't rescue me from myself. She met me where I already was and said, "I see you, do you see you?" And the win wasn't the aisle or the kiss. It was a Tuesday night when we were too tired to talk, and she leaned into my shoulder, and I realized we built a house out of air and promises, and somehow it held. The ending is satisfying, and it's a dare. We never signed that prenup. Some of you will call that romance. Some will call it a slow-moving train. You can see from miles away, I don't need universal agreement. I need a life I can live in. And right now it sounds like her laugh bouncing off tile. We did not buy for acoustics, feels like her hand squeezing mine. When someone stares, reminds me that the world can vote, and we can still win. Your turn, tell me straight in the comments. Was tearing up the prenup romantic or reckless? Have you judged someone at first glance and been wrong? Do we owe the world a picture that fits, or do we get to write our own? Drop your city, drop your story, drop the moment you changed your mind about somebody. And if this hit home, like and subscribe so we can keep telling the messy, hopeful, uncomfortable truth about how people love one another.